When you get your ass kicked enough consecutive times in a Souls game, it's probably time to farm a bit, and maybe even do some reading, like on a wiki or maybe talking to a friend, and figure out what tactics might be helpful, what items can you get that would give you an edge, does your enemy have any elemental weaknesses? These are all things you can and probably should do, rather than just beating your head against it until it hopefully falls apart. Because don't worry, you will still be beating your head against it. But giving yourself an advantage just makes it possible. It doesn't make it unfair in your favor. So this is the result of about 3.5 hours spent between combined farming and failed attempts down in the old chaos. I wasn't recording voice real time while doing that because I knew I'd be spending hours and hours farming up and, failing over and over again on this fight, and so I did. One piece of saving grace is that this is actually a weirdly good place to farm up souls, because these burnt knights will spawn as long as you please. They'll just keep coming and coming. But it also takes them a long time to deploy when you first enter the arena. So if you die, it's actually pretty easy to just run over to your bloodstain, pick up your souls, and then you could use a bone or the feather to get yourself back out. And I ended up using this quite a bit to add some extra stat points. I dumped some points into strength. And also, I used some souls from Vengarl, the head just sitting in the woods, to purchase very many of these yellow resins for electrical damage on my sword. The knights, like the Dark Burnt Knights, apparently don't really have elemental weaknesses, but the king, according to a wiki, does. He's weak to lightning. And I figured better to have it than not, even against the Dark Knights, because a magical augment always means extra damage, even if your foe isn't specifically weak to it. I believe now that a bare minimum of 3 of the allied knights would be necessary to even trigger the boss fight in the first place, because otherwise the portals will never get closed up and the king won't get summoned, I guess. Somebody correct me if that's wrong. But while having the 4th knight is definitely a benefit, it's far from a certainty that the knight will help you win, because it felt almost like an RNG thing. On some of these attempts, the 4th White Knight didn't make it to the boss fight, and his health bar would empty out just fighting the Burnt Knights, and he would die, and then I would just be going against the king entirely myself. Sometimes, during some attempts, he would make it to the boss fight with as much as 80% health, but even then, the boss doesn't necessarily focus your one allied knight. Sometimes he'll aggro on you, and sometimes he'll aggro on your friendly knight buddy. And of course you want him to aggro on your friendly knight buddy, because that's like the only way that you can get safe, serious, surefire damage off on him. Anyway, there's probably not much more to say on this one attempt. You guys know what this fight looks like. But I still need to have it recorded for posterity, so I'll be silent for a bit. See what I mean? Out of all the attempts that I lost on this guy, this attempt, I'm sure not coincidentally, is the one where he paid the most attention to my White Knight buddy. So it made it easy to get in close and just slash the crap out of him. And yeah, he dropped a crown, which I later learned does a very slow passive health regen. So my White Knight buddy just vanished, despite not actually dying during the fight. Did he die during the fight? I'm not sure. My camera work might have been so crazy that I couldn't tell. Then you go back to the Great Cathedral's main room, and the incorporeal ice lady up on the veranda talks to you for about 30 years. About, oh, I was born a fragment of the dark, blah, blah. I don't really need to show this, right? You guys already know the lore of this game far better than I do. I sat there and listened to her speak, but you don't have to do what I did. So someone mentioned after beating the Ivory King that there was a frigid wastes or some other optional area accessible now past him. I couldn't see where. Like, I saw the lady break some of her branches, but it didn't seem to give me access to any new location. Later, I went back down into the Old Chaos, but I just see more knights spawning there, so I left. So I did the normal post-boss cleanup. Went back to Majula, spoke to the Emerald Herald, leveled up with the souls I had earned. Got strength to the soft cap, and now I'm going to start dumping a lot of points into vigor because I'm seeing now that my health bar is criminally short. No doubt what made part of my struggles down in the Old Chaos so desperate. And I ate the Ivory King's soul because you can make a sword, which I don't really care about, blah, blah, blah. It's the same thing I've been doing like 24 times already. So, the next lead I would think of for DLC would be the shrine that was behind the Old Iron King's boss arena. Is that what I should do next, do you think?